What up, and welcome back to my first ever non-Malazan Book of the Fallen video. But I was challenged to the Converse Sneaker Tag by my good friend Philip Chase. So even though I'm not going to make it a habit of switching off of Malazan, I did want to make sure that I honored the challenge. So let's get into it. Believe it or not, this is like one of the hardest challenge videos I've ever done. I struggled to come up with what I was going to say for this. I wish, it's kind of embarrassing. I don't have a big storied history with reading. I think I have like a lost teenage reading years where I was pretty much only reading the stuff I was assigned to for school that was like mandatory reading. But I did read a decent amount as a kid growing up, and I think I kind of have my standout stuff is really from like 5th and 6th and 7th grade, and then maybe like senior in high school or beginning of college, because I remember reading stuff like the classics that they make you read, like Little Women and Heidi, and I was reading stuff that I would get at the little like school book fair, right, where your parents would give you a couple bucks and you go buy like some pencils and erasers and a couple books. And I was reading stuff like The K, Hatchet, which was like a survival story I really liked, White Fang, right, and the Jack London stuff. Adventure stories. I was really into Greek mythology growing up, so I can't remember, and I was trying to find like specific books, but I guess we must have just been given pieces of like the Odyssey and the Iliad, right? And that kind of like epic stuff spoke to me, because I remember really liking the fact that the gods were meddling and people had crazy powers, and like people like the Achilles who could run super fast, or Hercules that was really strong, and just, I don't know, that stuff really vibed with me. And I think the whole, Odysseus epic journey, like on a ship, going through all these monsters and just trials and tribulations and coming out on top, I was all in for that. The other thing that was really big for me reading as a kid up to my teenage years was like comic books, and I think I vibed with those for the same reason, right? That I just I liked powers and good and evil, and trying to see what these really cool people could do with their badass skills and all of that stuff. So I did a lot of that, and then the thing that I got turned on to that really stands out was in high school. One of the teachers gave me A People's History of the United States, which was a book by Howard Zinn. I come from a pretty sheltered part of, it was in San Diego, so we did still go to the beach and stuff, but it was in East County, so it was a rural part, and I feel like I just didn't have a broad exposure to different points of view and stuff like that, and that really just got the bug lit under me to like find out more stuff. And so I was reading all kinds of stuff, historical, biographical stuff, political economy stuff, finding out about wars and why they were fought and all that, and just really trying to drink in as much like non-fiction as I could. I really wanted to like figure out how the world works and to be able to change it and make a better place and that kind of stuff. And then that's the kind of reading journey that I had from basically like 16 years old, from American government as like a junior in high school, all the way up through even my late 20s. And I like looked up one day and I realized that I was working in consulting. I'd kind of like strayed pretty far from what that original vision was, which was to like use my own powers for good, my powers of math and spreadsheets or whatever. And I was like working in this consulting company where it was mostly about making money and yeah. And so I was like at a kind of unhappy place, right? And that was when I started reading more fiction, because I think I was looking to like escape. I was like working like, 15-hour days or whatever, and just like needing somewhere to go and get some like perspective or just enjoyment, entertainment, whatever. And then I realized that, like, man, I had really screwed myself, because like I was getting even more, like I was realizing there was these profound questions that once you put them in these kind of fantasy settings and you can kind of abstract yourself from, then you can be more objective about like analyzing what's going on there, and then you can bring that back to your own life. And so, you know, for me, I think most of my reading journey was one that was, you know, non-existent, basically, where I missed out on a lot of good opportunities. And so I remember not getting a lot of books too, and I guess I've taken this with, you know, this kind of literary inferiority complex with me into my adult life. But like, I loved Mark Twain. Like, I read, you know, the Tom Sawyer and stuff, and the Huck Finn, and I really enjoyed just the kind of playfulness of the stories and stuff like that. But I also like didn't get why these were so famous. Like, I was like, yeah, this is a dope book, but I kind of had a very surface level relationship with books like that, with books like Lord of the Flies, right, that are like these big you know, kind of foundational reading materials and stuff like that, you know, and I read them, and I felt like I could kind of comprehend plot-wise what was going on, but I just, you know, my brain didn't ever function on that kind of deeper level of like knowing what else is going on. And so like for me, when I'm kind of grateful that I did undergraduate studies in America, where they do force us to do general education, right? Because I found myself in like, you know, as an 18-year-old kid in you know, UC Santa Barbara at Dick Corum's comparative literature class, right? And he's talking about all these lenses and models, and he had, like, I distinctly remember we were reading stuff like, you know, Cervantes and Rabelais and stuff like that, which was like books like, growing up in East County, you'd never pick up Rabelais or something like that. And you're like, yeah, let's read Gargantua. No, that didn't happen. You didn't study Don Quixote and all that stuff, but you know, he would say, like, he would draw this picture, and I was like, what, this is a comparative writing or comparative literature course, and he's like, here's a model of a square, and he's like, you know, this part of the square is like the dominant thought pattern, and then there's like an emergent and a transgressive, and a, you know, and I was like, I had you know, stuff like that never occurred to me, to like put these frameworks, you know, overlay those on a book and try and see how characters represent these different, you know, dominant, transgressive, emergent, you know, elements that the author may or may not be speaking to. And that was just like a total foreign concept for me, but one that I really enjoyed, and I should have probably connected the dots a lot sooner, that I would have enjoyed fiction, you know, on that kind of a level. And I still like aspire to be able to kind of understand the deeper meanings of the books and stuff. But you know, that kind of is the tail of the tape that led me up to my journey with fantasy, right? Because I went back to working and just doing all that and just being bogged down in the daily grind of life, and the whole turning to you know, fiction and fantasy in particular, which was the one that just checked all my boxes, which I guess in retrospect makes sense for somebody who loved the X-Men cartoons, right, and was buying, like, having their parents take them to the swap meet so you could buy like comic book cards and make the little, you know, fold binder with the plastic sleeves, and you put all the little things, you know, and liked Greek mythology and the Cyclops. And oh yeah, another book that I remember reading was the A Wrinkle in Time, right? Like, you have like centaurs and monsters, and so I, you know, that I think made me naturally predisposed, that I don't know, I think I thought I was wasting my time, like, that's not going to help me make money, right? And and again, not to go too personal, but I have like this, you know, just I think my upbringing and who my parents were, it's like getting your financial house in order was a huge emphasis and focus, because we, my parents grew up like in relative poverty, I guess, and so we wanted to make sure that doesn't happen. And I think you take that to the opposite extreme, and then you wake up and it was just part of a much bigger set of life changes where I was like trying to prioritize the right stuff and enjoyment, learning, like developing myself and all of that. And that's when I went to Ice and Fire, Earthsea, right? Lord of the Rings and Wild Cards and Neil Gaiman, and I pretty much just started going buck wild on whatever fantasy I could find. I'm not that well read, but yeah, I would say that is the tale of the tape for my kind of literary journey. That's why I don't have more than an 8th grade vocabulary, and it's funny, I do all these econ talks and speeches and stuff, and people are always like, oh, I love how you like break it down into such like simple terms. I love how you make it like easy for us to understand. And I always am like, I don't know if I should let you know that those are the biggest words I know. I actually thought that sounded pretty smart. But yeah, so that, I think it all kind of makes sense. And it was fun to think about all those books that I read, because I did read quite a bit, but I just remember not being impacted. The one book, actually, though, that I do want to bring up, which hit me hard in the feels, there's 2 of them that I remember, and one was Where the Red Fern Grows, and I read that in probably 5th grade, I'm guessing, and it was about this kid who gets the 2 coon hunting dogs, and I won't spoil it for you, but that one hit, and it hit hard, and I didn't know books could do that for you. And I think that gives you a lot of insight into like what my favorite books and storylines are in Malazan, right? Because it's like the kind of, I'm still that same sappy sucker for those emotional storylines. And then the other one was Bridge to Terabithia, which I don't know why, but I could very much vibe with that kind of like alone child tragic shenanigans happening. Spoke to my real life in a lot of depressing ways, I guess. Now that I'm thinking about it, sounds pretty sad, but don't worry about me, it was a positive thing. And yeah, thank you so much to Philip Chase for tagging me and giving me the opportunity to participate. You're a great friend, and I just appreciate you always including me in the kind words and encouragement and all that stuff. Thank you to Vallestad Books for starting the challenge in the first place. She has come on to the scene and just taken Malaz by storm, and absolutely crushing it. So good job, keep doing what you're doing. Thanks to all my unabridged burners and homies from the Discord. Like, subscribe, go watch all the other Converse sneaker challenges. Everybody else had a much more interesting reading journey than I did. So yeah, have fun, and until next time, happy reading.